Today I'm continuing to read from The Diving Bell and the Butterfly by John Dominic Bobby. Outing. Stifling heat, but I would like to get out. It has been weeks, perhaps months, since I last left the hospital grounds for my wheelchair ride on the promenade along the shore. Last time it was still winter. Icy gusts whipped up clouds of sand, and the few thickly muffled strollers leaned purposefully into the wind. Today I would like to see Burke in summer attire, to see the beach, which was deserted all winter, packed with carefree July crowds, to reach the street from Sorel. One has to cross 3 parking lots whose rough, uneven surface sorely tries the buttocks. I had forgotten how grueling this route was with its puddles and its potholes, its cars inconsiderably parked on the pavements, and then at last the sea. Beach umbrellas, sailboats, and a human rampart of swimmers complete the postcard effect. A holiday sea, gentle and unthreatening, nothing like the steel reflection visible from the hospital terraces. And yet these are the same troughs, the same swell, the same misty horizon. We thread our way through a moving forest of ice cream cones and crimson thighs, easy to imagine licking a drop of vanilla from young sun-reddened skin. No one pays me any real attention. Wheelchairs are as commonplace in Burke as Ferraris in Monte Carlo, and poor dislocated wheezing devils like me are everywhere. This afternoon, Claude, the young woman to whom I am dictating this book, and Bryce are with me. I have known Claude for 2 weeks, Bryce for 25 years. It is strange to hear my old partner in crime telling Claude about me. My quick temper, my love of books, my immoderate taste for good food, my red convertible, nothing is left out. Like a storyteller exhuming the legends of a lost civilization. I didn't realize you were like that, says Claude. Henceforth my life is divided between those who knew me before and all the others. What kind of person will those who only know me now think I was? I do not even have a photo to show them. We stop at the top of a big stairway that goes down to the beach bar and to a long line of pastel-colored cabanas. The stairs remind me of the entrance to the Porte d'Auteuil metro station in Paris. I used to climb them as a child when returning from the old Molitor swimming pool, my eyes red with chlorine. The pool was demolished a few years ago. As for stairs, they are now just dead ends for me. Want to turn back? Asks Bryce. I protest, shaking my head vigorously. No question of turning around until we have reached our real goal. We move quickly past an old-fashioned wooden carousel whose shrieking steam organ pierces my eardrums. We pass a well-known hospital character we call Fangio. Tall, dark-haired, athletic-looking Fangio is rigid as a poker. Unable to sit, he is permanently condemned either to a vertical or horizontal position. He gets about at amazing speed, lying flat on his stomach on a vehicle he operates himself, parting the crowds with yells of, "Look out, here comes Fangio." I know who he is, but who is he really? I have no idea. Finally, we reach the farthest point of our journey, the very end of the promenade. I have not insisted on coming all this way just to gaze at the flawless seascape. I have come to gorge on the aromas emanating from a modest shack by the path leading away from the beach. Claude and Bryce bring me to a halt downwind. My nostrils quiver with pleasure as they inhale a robust odor, intoxicating to me, but one that most mortals cannot abide. "Ooh," says a disgusted voice behind me, "what a stench of grease." But I never tire of the smell of frying potatoes. 20-1. That's it. It's come back to me. The horse's name was Mitra Grandchamp. Vincent must be on his way through Abbeville by now. If you are driving from Paris, this is the point when the trip begins to seem long. You have left the unencumbered autoroute for a 2-lane road choked by endless lines of cars and lorries. When this story takes place, more than 10 years ago, Vincent, myself, and a few others had the extraordinary good fortune to be putting out a daily newspaper. It has since disappeared. The owner at the time, a press-infatuated industrialist, had been brave enough to entrust his baby to the youngest editorial team in Paris, at the very moment when dark political and financial forces were plotting to snatch its controls. Without our knowing it, we were the last cards he was to lay on the table, and we hurled ourselves 1000% into the fray. By now, Vincent has reached the junction where he leaves the Rouen and Crooty roads on his left and takes the minor road leading through a string of small townships to Burke. Drivers who don't know the way get lost in its twists and turns, but Vincent, who has already come to see me several times, keeps his bearings. To his sense of direction he adds, carried to the extreme, a sense of royalty. We worked 7 days a week, arriving early, leaving late. We worked at weekends and sometimes all night, blissfully doing the work of a dozen with 5 pairs of hands. Vincent had 10 major ideas every week, 3 brilliant, 5 good, and 2 ridiculous. It was part of my job to force him to choose among them, which went against his impatient grain. He would have preferred to act at once on every one of them, good and bad. I can hear him now, fuming at the steering wheel and cursing the highway department. In 2 years, the autoroute will reach Burke, but right now it is just an endless construction site, pushing slowly forward behind its screen of bulldozers and heavy-duty vehicles. We were inseparable. We lived, ate, drank, slept, and dreamed only of and for the paper. Whose idea was that afternoon at the racetrack? It was a fine winter Sunday, blue, cold, and dry, and the horses were running at Vincent's. Neither of us was a racing fan, but the track correspondent valued us highly enough to treat us to lunch at the Vincent's restaurant and to give us the password to the Aladdin's cave of racing, a tip. Mitra Grandchamp was a sure thing. He told us a guaranteed winner, and since the odds on him were 20 to 1, a fat little profit, much better than municipal bonds, seemed likely. Now Vincent is on the outskirts of Burke and, like all my visitors, is wondering what the hell he is doing here. We had eaten an enjoyable lunch that day in the restaurant overlooking the racetrack. The big dining room was frequented by gangsters in their Sunday suits and pimps and parolees and other shady characters who gravitate naturally to horse racing. Sated, we puffed greedily on long cigars and awaited the fourth race. In that hothouse atmosphere, criminal records bloomed like orchids all around us. Reaching the seafront, Vincent turns and drives along the promenade. The throng of summer visitors eclipses his winter memories of a frigid, deserted Burke. At Vincent's, we lingered so long in the dining room that we became oblivious to the racing. The betting counter slammed shut under our noses before I had time to pull from my pocket the roll of banknotes the people back at the paper had entrusted to me. Despite our attempts at discretion, Mitra Grandchamp's name had made the rounds of the newspaper. Rumor had turned him into a mythic beast everyone was determined to bet on. All we could do was watch the race and hope. All the last turn, Mitra Grandchamp began to pull away. Entering the final stretch, he had a lead of 5 lengths, and we watched in a dream as he crossed the finish line, a good 40 yards ahead of his closest pursuer. Back at the paper, they must have been going wild around the TV screen. Vincent's car slips into the hospital parking lot, brilliant sunshine. This is where my visitors, hearts in mouths, need fortitude to brave the new yards that separate me from the world. The automatic glass doors, lift number 7, and the horrible little corridor leading to room 119, all you can see through the half-open doors are bedridden wretches whom fate has cast to the far edge of life. Some visitors probably stand for a moment outside my room so that they can greet me with firmer voices and drier eyes. When they finally come in, they are gasping for air like divers whose oxygen has failed them. I even know of some who turned tail and fled back to Paris, their resolve abandoning them on my very threshold. Vincent knocks and enters soundlessly. I have become so inured to the look on the other people's faces and that I scarcely notice the transient gleam of fear. Or in any case, it no longer shakes me quite so much. I try to compose features atrophied by paralysis into what I hope is a welcoming smile. Vincent answers this grimace with a kiss on my forehead. He hasn't changed. His crest of red hair, his sullen expression, his stocky physique, his habit of shifting from one foot to another gave him the look of a Welsh shop steward visiting a mate injured in a mine explosion. His guard held a little low. Vincent bobs forward like a prize fighter in the tough tenderweight division. On Mitra Grandchamp Day, after that disastrous win, he had simply muttered, "Idiots. We're completely idiots." "When we get back to the office, will be history," his favorite expression. Frankly, I had forgotten Mitra Grandchamp. The memory of that event has only just come back to me, now doubly painful. Regret for a vanished past, and above all, remorse for lost opportunities. Mitra Grandchamp is the woman we were unable to love, the chances we failed to seize, the moments of happiness we allowed to drift away. Today it seems to me that my whole life was nothing but a string of those small near misses, a race whose result we know beforehand, but in which we fail to bet on the winner. By the way, we managed to pay back all our colleagues. Loaded for duck. On top of the various discomforts that accompany locked-in syndrome, I suffer from a serious hearing disorder. My right ear is completely blocked and my left ear amplifies and distorts all sounds farther than 10 feet away. When a plane tows an ad for the local theme park over the beach, I could swear that a coffee mill has been crafted onto my eardrum. But that noise is only fleeting. Much more disturbing is the permanent racket that assails me from the corridor whenever they forget to shut my door. Despite all my efforts to alert people to my hearing problems, heels clatter on the linoleum. Carts crash into one another. Hospital workers hail one another with the voices of stockbrokers trying to liquidate. Radios nobody listens to are turned on, and on top of everything else, a floor waxer sends out an auditory foretaste of hell. There are also a few frightful patients. I know some whose only pleasure is to listen to the same cassette over and over again. I had a very young neighbor who was given a velveteen duck equipped with a sophisticated detection device. It emitted a reedy, piercing quack whenever anyone entered the room. In other words, 25 times a day. Luckily, the little patient went home before I could carry out my plan to exterminate the duck. But I am keeping it in readiness. You never know what horrors tearful families may bestow on their young. However, the first prize for eccentric neighbors goes to a woman patient who emerged demented from a coma. She bit nurses, seized orderlies by their genitals, and was unable to request a glass of water without screaming fire. At first, these false alarms had everyone dashing to action stations. Then, wearied by the struggle, they ended up letting her yell her fill at all hours of the day and night. Her antics gave our neurology section a heady cuckoo's nest atmosphere, and I was almost sorry when they removed our friend to help murder elsewhere. Far from such din, when blessed silence returns, I can listen to the butterflies that flutter inside my head. To hear them, one must be calm and pay close attention, for their wing beats are barely audible. Loud breathing is enough to drown them out. This is astonishing. My hearing does not improve, yet I hear them better and better. I must have the ear of a butterfly.